Forgot my name for a minute.
Of course you managed to. I'm Elroy. If you don't mind giving me the pleasure, would you mind introducing yourself to everyone?
Of course, my name is Tony Wash. I'm the programmer of Screambox, a horror streaming service that you can find on Roku, Amazon, online, all sorts of great places.
Oh, wow. So Tom Servini, that's what did you enjoy going to school there?
Yeah, I mean it kickstarted my career in horror filmmaking. I went there from 2004 to 2006. So I'm familiar with the Pittsburgh area where you guys are living, and I enjoyed it. I didn't really stick with special effects. I don't think that I was good enough to do it on the regular. And so while I was there, I directed a movie that I wrote, and there was like an abandoned funeral home in the town. We were in Monessen, Pennsylvania, which is about 30 minutes south of Pittsburgh, and so we shot a horror movie called "It's My Party and I'll Die If I Want to." In that abandoned house, and I basically got all of my friends from the special effects school to work on it, and so it's got some pretty cool practical effects gags, and Tom Savini had a cameo in it. So yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Oh, wow.
That that sounds actually one of my first questions. I really like the choose your own adventure style. What led to that choice?
Oh, well, I appreciate you saying that. I think that the choose your own adventure element came from me being scared to direct a feature length movie. I'd never directed something that big before. I'd only done like one or two stupid short films in college a few years before. And so I wrote a script and it was only 45 pages long. So I thought, well, that's a short film, it's not a feature. So how do I make it unique since it's a longer short film and everybody directs a short film when they start. And so I thought, well, hey, it'd be pretty cool with DVD technology. I could direct a choose your own adventure movie and then just put it together as a choose your own adventure on the DVD that I sell at conventions. And so I wrote out an extra like 20 pages of different options that the characters can go down. And the actors were always confused. They didn't really know what was going on because they didn't understand how things fit together plot wise. But yeah, so we ended up shooting about 20 minutes of extra footage that's not in the regular movie. And so in the end, I went back to Pittsburgh in 2007 and shot additional scenes for the movie. So it ended up becoming a feature length movie, but it also has that extra 20 minutes of options that you can on the DVD choose which direction the characters go, and if you kill them, you got to start over again.
Oh,
And
wow.
yeah,
Oh, ca- kind of like what am I thinking of? The special edition version. I'm not sure which movie it was for Final Destination.
yes. So we shot this, and about a year after we shot it, while I was still editing it, Final Destination 3 came out, and they had the choose your own death or choose your own fate. And so I saw that and I was like, oh, well, they kind of took it and are doing it. Thankfully, their version is a lot smaller or simpler than what we did with It's My Party and I'll Die If I Want to. With theirs, you'll like watch it and it'll you can choose a different direction for the death scene, but all it really does is slightly change the death scenes. It doesn't like actually prolong or change the story. um a better version of it was on when they remember how they remade House on Haunted Hill in like the late 90s. They did a sequel called The Return to House on Haunted Hill, and on the Blu-ray of that, they had a choose your own adventure, which was pretty cool because it had a lot more options. Still didn't really do a ton to change the story, but I thought it was better implemented than how Final Destination did it.
Nice.
When it comes to It's My Part and I'll Die If I Want to, was any part inspired by anything from Tom Savini's special effects school?
Hmm. Well, The movie itself is inspired by some of my favorite horror movies, which is Creepshow, Evil Dead, and Night of the Demons. It's My Partner I'll Die If I Want to is very much so kind of an amalgamation of those three movies, visually, story-wise, kind of thematically. And then when I initially set out to shoot something at Tom Savini's effects school, what happened was when we were in class, and this was again 2004, people had cell phones, but they didn't have cameras on them yet. You know, it was only like you were just able to start using text messaging in like 2004, 2005. And so everybody in class was taking photos with their old school digital cameras or the Kodak disposable cameras. They would take photos of their makeups, but no one was taking video of them. And I just thought it was kind of odd that we were doing special effects for movies and no one was taking video of their effects moving and stuff, you know, seeing how your character could emote with the makeup on and see if the makeup like molded or bent or cracked or whatever. And so I said, you know, why don't we get together and let's shoot like a music video? And I was going to do like a party all set to Michael Jackson's Thriller and just have a bunch of the students from the school at a party because every weekend we had parties anyway at somebody's house or at one of the dorms. And so I was like, we'll just use one of the houses that the school uses for housing will because there were some pretty cool, creepy old houses in Monessen. And so we'll have everybody partying, and then I reached out to six different pairs of friends and said, create a creature, and we'll have it where all of these six creatures converge on this party as the song plays, and basically like attack the kids and start killing people. And everybody was excited about it and everybody kind of thought this is super cool, let's make it happen, and then no one did anything for it. And so after like a month, maybe 2 months of nobody, including myself, really working on actually putting that production together, sculpting the monsters, creating the makeups, I kind of gave up on that idea and said, well, okay. One of my buddies had a friend who was also going to the school, but I didn't really know him all that well. I just knew him in passing, and he was renting this abandoned funeral home from a church that owned it. And he was only like staying in one room in this house, and the house had like really not working. I don't think the plumbing worked. I don't know how he was going to the bathroom or taking a shower. Maybe he wasn't. I don't know. It had really bad electricity with old fuses that you had to screw in. It didn't even have a new fuse box. And so my buddy Nate was like, "Hey, you know, I think it'd be really cool if we both wrote a script and you know, whichever one we like more or whichever one we finish first, we'll shoot the movie there." I said that's super cool. And so Nate had a great idea for a movie idea. And I don't know if he ever started writing the script or not, but I did. I wrote my script and I actually wrote a different script first called Contained. That was like an unofficial sequel to Creepshow and I was going to try and talk to George Romero at the time and see if I could get the rights to you know do an offshoot of one of those stories from the movie, and obviously none of that ever happened. And so when I finished writing that script, I had a friend who was a director, and he's like, "Hey, this is going to cost way too much money to do. You should write something smaller." So I went back to the desk and I wrote "It's My Party and I'll Die If I Want to," which was still a pain in the butt to make, but I did it, and here we are 21 years later, still making movies.
I love the name.
Thank you.
I heard I heard while you were working on the production, you worked with Tom Savini. What was that like?
So Tom Savini was he has a cameo in the movie. So basically, we shot the movie from 2005 to 2006. That was my last semester going to effects school there. I graduated in February of 2006, stayed in Pittsburgh for 2 more months to finish shooting the movie, and then I moved back to the Chicagoland area, which is where I'm from originally and where I still live, to edit the movie. When I finished editing the movie, I showed it to the friend that that was the director who said that the other script I wrote was too high budgeted. And he said, "Hey, this is cool. You did a great job, but you need more violence, more death scenes. You should probably put some nudity in it because back then sex was still a pretty popular thing to have in horror movies, very similar to the 80s and 90s horror films. And he said, and you should try and get a named actor to do a cameo in it. Do you think you could get Tom Savini to do it? So Tom Savini had given all of us students his email and, doesn't really necessarily keep in touch with anybody, but I reached out to him and he was pretty responsive. And so we were able to get him to come out for a day. And I went back out to Pittsburgh in 2007 and shot, I shot an extra week worth of scenes and we did a bunch of new death scenes. We did a whole new intro to the movie that kind of introduced the story behind why the house is haunted. Um, and yeah, and we got a day where Tom Savini came on and worked with us. And when he was on set, he was awesome. He was really enthusiastic about how the movie was coming together, and he had fun ideas for some of the shot sequences. And yeah, it was a really good time. It was a lot of fun.
Wow.
If you made blood bites in a modern day, would you have made any for part of it for TikTok?
Oh man, I mean that's a good question. Yeah, so Bloody Bites is the short film series that I produce for Screenbox, and basically we showcase short horror films and thriller and sci-fi movies from all over the world. We're actually premiering season 17 the beginning of April. Um, and I think if we get to a point where we are producing, like actually financing short films to be created for the show, then I would totally think about doing vertical TikTok style short films. I know that Screambox is looking at doing vertical horror. We just haven't actually gotten into producing it yet. We've only had discussions so far. But yeah, certainly something that I'd be interested in pursuing.
Kind of sliding into my next question from that, as you had mentioned before, you are the director of programming and original production for Screenbox. Can you tell us a little bit about how that entails?
Sure. So basically, for I've been working for Bloody Disgusting for 10 years now. We've been partnered on Bloody Bites, and previous to Bloody Bites, I had a show called World of Death, which was the same thing. We featured short films from all over the world. We showcased over 500 short films in World of Death. We featured filmmakers from more than 50 countries, which is pretty cool. Um, and so in 2019 or 2020, I can't remember which, uh, Bloody Disgusting came to me and said, "Hey, we want you to take what you did with World of Death and we want you to produce a new show for us called Bloody Bites." And so I started working on that. And then they kind of came to me a few months later and said, "We would love for you to also program Screambox, Screambox TV, which was a linear channel, which is very similar to a cable channel. It has commercial breaks, it's got censorship like a cable network. So, you can't show nudity and violence and profanity and stuff." So they said, "Hey, why don't you program that and also produce Bloody Bites?" And so I started doing that. Uh, basically Bloody Disgusting and Screambox were acquired by a company called Cineverse, which is this big media company. They own the Bob Ross channel and they own the Barney Network, for kids and stuff. And so we have a cool sister channel called Midnight Pulp, which is all like grindhouse exploitation movies, kung fu movies, weird sci-fi, and just wacky, drug movies and stuff. And so they asked me, since I'd been doing a good job of building a brand with Screenbox TV and with Bloody Bites, to go and program Screenbox as a whole. And so now I manage the SVOD platform, which is where you have a subscription and you log in like Netflix or Hulu or anything, and you can pick the movie you want to watch or show, and it's uncensored and no commercial breaks. Um, and then last October, they promoted me to the director of programming and original productions because I had produced with a couple of independent filmmakers a show called Trouble with Tessa in 2024, and it released in 2025, and they liked what we did, and so I told them, I said, "I'm going to make this show for you, but I want to move forward and create bigger, productions with larger budgets and give independent filmmakers an opportunity to create cool shows for Screenbox. And so the first show that we're doing is in a few months. I'm going to be producing and directing uh, a show called Your Dearest Darkest Friend with Ted Raimi, and Ted Raimi is going to be hosting a talk show that we are comparing to Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood or Pee Wee's
Ooh.
Playhouse if it was in Disney's Haunted Mansion. Um, yeah, so it's
I
going to be
can't wait
really
for
fun.
that.
I know it's going to be super fun. There's going to be, we're going to have some puppeted characters in it. It's going to have some really cool guests that he's going to interview. We're looking at reaching out to some of the most prolific names in the horror business, from directors and actors and effects artists and that type of stuff. So we're really excited about it.
Well, me too.
Definitely checking that out.
You can't wait.
Same.
Thanks, guys.
If you Can you give us a little bit of a hint into like how you get your inspiration for your projects?
Well, I'm a lifelong horror fan. I mean, if you can kind of see it from my office here, I've grown up on loving the horror genre. I grew up on horror movies and reading things like Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark. And so I've just always been a fan of the genre. And in high school, I worked in a couple of different video stores, really built upon my general love of horror by renting all of the obscure horror movies that were there, and just really had like this insane passion for it, and also a passion for filmmaking. And so after in college I did a couple of independent studies, um, to just do like short films and stuff, because I went to a regular college that didn't have a film program. And so, shot a couple short films that were all horror oriented. And then I went to Savini School, and I've just been making horror movies ever since. And inspiration for them can come from either me writing a script, having an idea that I love, and I write a script and then go and make the movie if I can find financing for it. In some cases, someone will come to me and say, "Hey, here's something I want to do. Do you want to produce it, or do you want to direct it with me, or whatever?" Um, Now, most recently, obviously, I'm getting contracted by my company, Cineverse, to do stuff for Screenbox. Um, and then a couple years ago, my wife and I were watching a horror movie on the couch, and she asked me if they'd ever done a horror trivia game show before. And I was like, no, I don't think they have. So my wife and I produced a horror trivia game show called Better Luck Than Chuck,
Mhm.
which is not out yet. We're waiting to release the first season. It'll come out later this year, but we are currently releasing a really fun micro sitcom on our YouTube channel. So go to YouTube and check out Better Luck Than Chuck. Um, we have a micro sitcom. It's called True Love Never Dies, It Festers. And it's starring our host, the widow, and her dead husband, Charlie. The widow is a witch. She's the wittiest witch of the Midwest. And she's murdered her husband by poisoning him many years ago, back when Nixon was still president, and she brings him back to life with her magic.
Yeah.
And she has him sitting in the basement rotting because he's not a zombie. He can't walk around and eat brains. He's just a corpse, conscious corpse sitting on the couch, slowly rotting. And she makes him watch horror movies with her all day and night. And that's basically what they do. And he's mad at her for killing him. So they bicker like Peg and Al Bundy from Married with Children. And it's a lot of fun. It's basically like if Elvira was married to the Crypt Keeper from Tales from the Crypt.
So,
We I actually That's a little bit of a really good segue because we're toward because I do have some questions about Luck then Chuck, but gonna make a midway stop in the production of Skeletons in the Closet.
Sure.
The TV show shown in, Skeletons in the Closet was hosted by the widow and her husband. Was this more of the prototype versions of their characters, or were they more fully formed at that point?
Oh yeah, yeah. So Charlie, the zombie, who's the host of Skeletons in the Closet and Better Luck Than Chuck. I mean, he is literally the logo for my company, Scotchworthy Productions. If you follow me on Instagram, he's my Instagram avatar. I've my first email for Scotchworthy Productions was Charlie, at Scotchworthy, and so he's these characters have been in my head since I went to college before Tom Savini School. When I went to my general college and got a bachelor's degree in communications and art, I had a creative writing class, and I came up with these two characters because at the time I'd never seen a dual host dynamic like that. There was always Svengoolie in Chicago, there was Sammy Terry in Indiana or Ohio, Elvira, obviously, but I'd never seen a like Elvira married to the Crypt Keeper, and so I thought, well, why not do something like that? So in 2012, uh, I was approached to create a short film for an anthology movie, very similar to VHS, but not found footage. And each director was going to do a short film and then combine them together to make a feature. And we all, there were four of us directors. We all shot a short film from 2012 until like 2014. We were trying to get it finished up and just were distracted by other projects and whatnot. Finally, um, the project disbanded. Two of the filmmakers took their short films and went their own ways with them, and so my buddy and I, who had directed two of the shorts, we just kind of like were like, well, what can we do with them? Maybe we'll just release them together. Maybe we'll release them separately, whatever. And so a few more years went by, and in 2016, I approached my buddy and then also our cinematographer, Rob Stern, who I've worked with for 13 years now on stuff. Um, and I said, look, we can take Ben's movie, we can take my movie, and I have these ideas, The Widow and Charlie, and then the little girl watching their show on TV, who's their number one fan, Jamie, and then she's got a babysitter, and there's a killer on the loose in her neighborhood. We can take those, and if we shoot those two segments as the wraparounds, we can tie all of this together and probably release it as a feature-length anthology. And I'd love to call it Skeletons in the Closet. And Ben was on board, Rob was on board, and so we went in 2017 and we shot Skeletons in the Closet and the Killers in the House, which is the name of the short with the little girl and the babysitter. And yeah, I mean, I directed those and got those out there and established the Widow and Charlie as these characters that a lot of people really liked, but that was an independent movie. It was released independently, and so not a lot of mainstream audiences saw that movie, I would imagine. It's available all over the place. You can watch it probably on Tubi and whatnot, um, but yeah, so I always wanted to just take the Widow and Charlie and perpetuate them. And when Meredith my wife gave me the idea of, us creating a game show, we just kind of said it was just natural for us to use the Widow and Charlie as the hosts of the game show, which is cool because it's not just trivia. It's like there's the comedic element because Charlie is very silly and funny. He's very Peter Griffin from Family Guy. So he's like that comedic element as the co-host. And then the widow is doing the trivia questions and stuff, but she also has a drier, sarcastic sense of humor. And so I think it's a fun dynamic, and the show takes place in their basement, which is still decorated very 60s style because she's had a dead guy rotting in her basement for 15 years or for 50 years. So she's not going to hire a contractor to come over and, renovate her basement or anything. So I think it's a lot of fun. It's definitely horror comfort food, as we like to call
How does it feel to be the director of the first ever horror game show?
it. I mean, it's pretty awesome, and I think the coolest thing about it, well, there's two things about it that make it as probably the coolest thing I've ever worked on. The first thing is it's something that no one's really done, and I think we did a really great job with it. We have amazing sponsors from Fright Rags, Trick or Treat Studios, Severin Films, Terror Vision. Um, we have Terror Films. We have a grand prize provided by Universal Studios for a trip to Universal Halloween Horror Nights at either Universal Orlando or at Hollywood, Universal Studios in Hollywood. So it's like we got some amazing stuff there. We got really cool cameos who read questions for us, like Mike Flanagan and BJ McDonnell and Bria Grant and Rebecca McHenry and stuff. Um, but then the other cool thing about it, so as a horror fan, it's super cool because it's just I would watch this show in a heartbeat if I found it on TV one day and was like, oh man, I need to binge this because I love it. And then the other part of it that's great is just I made it with my friends and I made it with my wife, like my wife and I created it together and there's nothing I've been prouder of than doing something with my partner in life, and she's my best friend, and so it's just amazing to have that not only personal relationship but the collaboration on a business end as well. And then all of our friends worked on it too, and these are people that I've been working with and making movies with for, like I said, 15 years at this point. So um, it's a dream come true to be on set with people that you absolutely love like that. So what's he eating?
Trying to eat my notebook for reasons unknown.
Stop it. She's got questions. You got to stop,
Yeah,
messing
stop it.
around.
I got reason I probably will have a concussion. And we have reason the notebook might get destroyed, and somehow the dog is halfway across the room, and he'd be the culprit of the second one.
Yes, he would.
You read the next. Is for the widow and Charlie? Is there for their dynamic? Did you get any inspiration from any horror hosts or hot culture?
Well, so obviously, style-wise, she's the opposite of Elvira, but I still wanted to embody Elvira in the sense of I grew up on Elvira. I absolutely love Elvira. She contributed to me being the horror fan I am. But I think that Elvira, I didn't want to do the dumb bimbo type, for lack of a better way of putting it, horror hostess. I wanted, and I didn't want her to just be a sex symbol. I wanted the widow to be empowered. I wanted the widow to be in charge and smart and witty and sexy because she commands her presence. And so I think that Alexis Salata did a really great job with that. And similarly, in Skeletons in the Closet, I think Ellie Church did an incredible job portraying the widow in that capacity. And so I love that the widow is more representative of a female who's in power and who is just smart and witty, like I said, and sexy because of those attributes, not because her boobs are hanging out. Um, and then Charlie is the crypt keeper in visual, but Charlie is I don't really know how to describe it. I think anybody who's married understands the dynamic of being married. And like I said, I'm married to my best friend. My wife and I get along great and we create well together. Um, and we have so much in common. But when you're married, you still have like, you butt your heads at times. And I have my buddy John, who's been married for 20 years now. He wrote Skeletons in the Closet with me, and he wrote Better Luck Than Chuck with me because I wanted someone who had a lot more experience with being in a marriage to write the dynamic between these married characters. Um, but a lot of it also is credited to Adam and Alexis, who play the widow and Charlie in Better Luck Than Chuck, because a lot of it was improv. And Skeletons in the Closet was all scripted, and so they could memorize the script, and then I could direct them through that. With Better Luck Than Chuck, I was directing it, and not just them, but also the contestants with the game show. I also play the disembodied voice, which is like the announcer for the game show. So I tell the contestant what prize they've won, and I announce the contestants and that type of stuff. But um but in terms of like a lot of the comedy, that's a lot of that is 90% of that is the widow, is Adam and Alexis's improv skills. Because when you're working with contestants and it's live recording, it's not like you can have that written, you kind of have to think on the spot. So, yeah, I mean, inspiration from any horror hostess or host that we've known over the years, mostly Elvira and mostly the Crypt Keeper. But mix that with Peg and Al Bundy from Married with Children for sure.
They're funny. They fight a lot.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. They do.
What is it like to work with Meredith? What is that last name?
Yeah.
It's
Camillo.
Yeah, that's it.
Amazing. A dream come true. I Meredith and I got married when I was 38 or 39. We met when I was 38 years old. We got married when I was 40. And being single for the better part of my 30s, I honestly thought I was never going to get married, or I thought that I would settle. It's hard to meet somebody when you're older in life. And so not only meeting someone that I fell in love with and was attracted to on a personal level, but finding someone who had just as much of a creative tenacity and desire to make stuff was like a bonus. And Meredith, she runs her own business. She does like high-end wedding stationery, and is really good at it. Has been doing that for over 20 years herself. And so when we started, when we got together and started, spending more time together as we were dating, she was really fascinated by filmmaking, and so she kind of got roped into helping with art department on a couple of things like The Stylist, directed by Jill Six, um, and Revealer, which was directed by Luke Boyce. Um, and so, working in art department on those, doing set design and graphics for those, she really started falling in love with it. And so over the years, we've just worked on other films in the art department side of it. And then for Better Luck Than Chuck, she wanted to design the set. And so when we decided we were going to do it, she kind of ran with it and built a pitch deck and started developing the visual look of how it's all going to work out and everything. And so um, I think she did a tremendous job of evolving the look of Skeletons in the Closet to what Better Luck Than Chuck is, and mixing that style with the game show style that she wanted. The shag carpet and the platform that the couch and the podium are sitting on and stuff. And so I think she just did a tremendous job, and I'm just proud of her because she's only been doing this not even half as many years as I've been doing it, and I feel like she's an award-winning production designer at this point and producer. She just
Wow,
hasn't won the
really.
award yet. So,
What have you learned from making the show?
well, I've learned that unscripted television is a lot different than scripted narrative filmmaking. Um, Not having a script to work off of is not easy. Um, the intangibles of contestants and stuff can be nerve-wracking, but thankfully we had great contestants. Um, I learned that, distribution right now, like it's hard to sell episodic content, which is really hard to believe because you look at anything from, I mean, look at any show right now on streaming or on television, and it's episodic, and people binge it or they are addicted to it and watch it every week it releases.
Hmm.
So, we believe that we've created something that there is a dedicated fan base for, and we just need that fan base to discover it and support us on social media and on YouTube so that we can then show that to distributors and have them say, "Wow, this brand has a big following behind it. These people are eager to see it released. So let's help them release it and let's make a season 2 and 3 and 5 and 10. And, you know, if I can retire making Better Luck Than Chuck seasons, I'll be a very happy person.
Yeah, that would be awesome.
Thank you.
You,
Mhm.
as you had mentioned before, originally, I actually have this in the note. Make sure to ask before the interview starts. Make sure it's okay to ask. You were mentioning the show that you're working on with Ted Rami, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. Is there anything extra that you didn't mention before that you would be able to tell us about it?
Well, so basically Ted is going to be inviting horror celebrities into his dilapidated and haunted manor. We're shooting in a really cool haunted house that's not open in the spring or summer, so we're going to be shooting there. And basically Ted is a mixologist, so he's going to be mixing alcoholic or non-alcoholic mocktails for his guests. and all of these mocktails are going to kind of have a horror theme to them. Um, and Ted will be then sitting and chatting the horror business with these people. And then, like I said, we've got some puppeted characters. We've got the previous owner of the house, Mortimer Dustworth, whose head is in a jar on the bar top, who is going to be a part of the interview process. And don't worry, he's fine. He's not hurt. He's enjoying himself. Trust me. Um, yeah, and then there's also going to be another character, a rat that's going to scurry around and kind of have a good time, like a kind of dead can not cannibal zombified rat character as well. So it's going to be a lot of fun. We're hoping to premiere the pilot episode at film festivals this fall, and then it'll be streaming on Screambox, hopefully starting Halloween of this year. So
Yeah, definitely checking that out. I do
awesome.
have one last question before we get into my normal final questions, which is who would be on your horror host Mount Rushmore?
Horror host Mount Rushmore?
Yes.
Well, I mean, I'm going to put the Widow and Charlie because obviously they're my characters, and I would love nothing more than to see them, receive that fandom star base that they deserve. Um, Elvira, um, and then I would say Svengoolie because I'm from the Chicagoland area. So those would be my four.
Nice.
Smooch's one of Smooch's favorites is Chili Billy.
Yeah.
Okay, there's a lot of them out there.
Yeah, there is a lot.
And Joe Bob.
Yep,
But hopefully not sounding rushed, we're going to go into our normal final questions if you don't mind.
that's fine.
And is there any projects or things you would like everyone to know about that I didn't ask about?
Well, I mean, obviously, like I said, Better Luck Than Chuck is the one right now that's being promoted. You can find Better Luck Than Chuck on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube are the primary spots. You can also follow us on Facebook, but we don't really post as much on Facebook. But I highly recommend going to our YouTube and watching our micro sitcom. It's called True Love Never Dies, It Festers. We're releasing our 13th episode tomorrow, Wednesday afternoon, March 11th. So if you haven't, go to our YouTube and binge the first 12 episodes. They're a lot of fun. They're super funny. They're really cute. I think you'll enjoy them. Uh, Other than Skeletons in the Closet and It's My Party, I'll Die If I Want to, I directed a movie called The Rake, which is a psychological thriller monster movie. It's a lot more serious horror, but it's got really awesome monster special effects in it from my buddy Jason Kane and his team. So I recommend checking that out. That's streaming in a lot of places, including on Screambox. You can also watch my Grindhouse movies, High on the Hog, starring the late great Sid Haig, Joe Estevez, and the late great Robert Zadar. Um, that's a lot of fun, and Sid Haig and Robert and Joe were all really awesome to work with. So that's a cool one to check out, which you can rent in a bunch of different places. Um, Otherwise, if you don't have a subscription to Screambox, there's no time like now, and I'll even hold this up because it should still work. If you can scan that QR code, if you're
Yeah.
able to, you can get $1.99 a month for 3 months to sign up for Screambox,
Some.
which is a really
Yep.
great deal. I mean, that's pretty cheap. That's less than it cost me to rent a video from the video store back in the day.
Yeah.
And thank you for not asking me to edit anything because I barely know how to do that.
It's okay.
But also, any advice for anyone going into or getting into shows, movies in the horror genre?
Well, if you are not patient, if you're not tenacious, if you're not willing to potentially not make a lot of money off of it, um, at the beginning, then I would highly recommend that you maybe don't do it, or you have another job that will allow you to pay your bills. Um, Other than that, sorry, I got my next call. So I just had to text the guy that I'm going to be a minute late.
Because don't worry,
So
there's like one last thing after this.
okay, that's fine, yeah. But yeah, I mean, other than that, like if you want to be a horror movie director, I really recommend that you get an understanding of practical special effects and visual effects because if you don't know how to direct those, you're going to waste a lot of time on set and your effects are not going to look as good as they could. So I definitely recommend that too.
And because she still can't get links to work in YouTube IOs, and I blame that more on YouTube than I do on me, where can we find you on online social media websites and everything?
So you can find me at Scotchworthy, like a bottle of scotch, and worthy, like we are not worthy, Scotchworthy. You can go to my website, scotchworthy.com, and you can go to the store and buy any of my older movies on DVD, VHS, and Blu-ray, as well as other merch. You can find Scotchworthy on Instagram, as well as, again, Better Luck Than Chuck on YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok. And then you can also find Screambox on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube as well.
And we want to thank you so much for being so kind as in to let me interview you.
Thank
Along
you.
with Smooch,
Thank you very, very
me, Miss Sam, and it was a pleasure getting to meet you.
Yeah, pleasure meeting you guys too, and thanks for talking to me.
And thank you for letting us interview you. I hope you have a wonderful day / evening / night.
Thank you very much. You guys as well, all right?
Bye.
Bye.